Don't engage alone. We do this together.
Yeah, we got it. We got it.
52 book.
Somebody clip this for the woman.
Welcome to Comics League Live. I'm Jared. I'm here with Comicstorian. What's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome to the show. So, normally, whenever I have a new guest, I normally ask the question. So, what got you into comics and YouTubing?
YouTubing was my wife. Comics was my dad. So when I was a kid, my dad was a big comic book fan. And so he shared that passion with me. My first story, as I tell everyone, was, and I don't remember what it's actually about, and I refuse to read it. I own it here, but it's Superman time and time again. And as a kid, I just remember reading Superman fighting dinosaurs, and I know that's not really what it's about. So I don't read it again, but that's what got me into comics. And then I pretty much read Batman, Green Lantern, Spider-Man, like, throughout the 2000s until I was in the army. And then it was actually New 52 that got me to read everything.
There
it
you
didn't
go.
seem so impenetrable anymore. You know?
Yeah. Me too. I entered around the New 52 time because I didn't have to read anything except for Batman and Green Lantern.
Right, which was luckily those were the ones that I was reading. So when they carried over, it's like, oh, cool. Like everything else is starting over though.
Yeah, exactly. The problem is that when they try and tell me that Batman has had 5 Robins in 5 years, and I'm like, wait a second here. This doesn't
totally works. Don't look too deep into it. It works.
Or like that Blackest Night somehow happened, even though important characters of Blackest Night don't exist in this continuity. So I'm like,
or that no one else is going to reference it except the Green Lantern book.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, wait a second here. But the other book that I read, and I don't know if you checked this one out, was a Superman Wonder Woman from Charles Soule.
Well, back in the New 52 era? I love that one. I'm thinking about covering it again because I never actually got around to it.
Dude, you got it. It's so good. Until it's good for like 2 arcs, and then Tomasi comes on and basically tanks the book.
Which is weird because he did such a good Superman run without Wonder Woman. Like,
yeah, I know.
Superboy, so
my problem with it is that they address, but so in that it's taking place around the time that she was the god of war. Yeah. So they already addressed that at the end of volume 1. It's like the 7th issue, I think. Then Tomasi comes on and makes it like it's this big revelation with Clark that she's the god of war. And I'm like, you dealt with this in the beginning of the series.
Right.
I'm like, wait a second here. Someone's not reading.
I don't know if you caught the Venom trailer this morning, but we
I did
talk about that on our podcast because they're struggling with the We Are Venom line.
Yeah.
And we're all like, didn't they say that in the first 2 movies? Why are they struggling saying we are Venom now?
Well, not only that, I thought they were going to start saying, no, we are Venom, the lethal protector, because that was the whole thing of like of Venom 2. But then I'm like, so you don't reference that? It's kind of odd. But you never know. But the thing that I felt was kind of weird about the New 52 is that when they went to Rebirth, they basically went, screw the past 5 years of content. That didn't happen. Screw you if you like it. That's it. I'm done.
Well, I mean, that's what DC does. I've actually got a video I'm working on right now. Like, that's one of the big bonuses to a DC series as opposed to Marvel. We have all the different reasons between DC and Marvel and why they're better in different aspects. But one thing I've always liked about DC, and everyone freaks out about, but it is the crises and it is the reboots because it does give clean jumping on points.
Exactly.
The amount of books that I just start reading because they got restarted at Rebirth or at New 52 or at Dawn of DC, things that I would never touch are because I know it's a clean reboot. Generally.
Dude, I'm going to give you a fantastic book to check out that I recently checked out from the New 52. It's called Men of War. Basically what that is, they took DC War comics and brought them into continuity. So it's like army guys doing
the Sergeant Rock one?
missions. What?
That's the Sergeant Rock series?
Yeah. I've always felt that that's a cool idea that DC should do with like Steve Trevor, Rick Flag, all the soldier guys, and just have, because here's the thing. As much as because I'm also like a longtime Wonder Woman reader, I gave the Tom King run 8 issues and I just dropped it. But the thing about it that
I got thoughts of the Tom King run.
yeah, me too. Because see, here's my problem with the Tom King run. As much because I enjoyed his Batman run for the most part. I was. See, I like a lot of his work, and I even said Heroes in Crisis, if you take it out of like context and just say it's just one story. In other words, if the stuff that happened to Wally didn't happen, it's not a bad story.
I actually don't mind Heroes in Crisis, and it did take a little work to get Wally back. I think the problem with Heroes in Crisis was we just got Wally back. And he's like, and now I'll break him again. And it's like, no, you don't break the toy. We just got the toy. But and I like the Batman run, but the problem I had with the Batman run was the 9 issues of Dreams.
Yeah.
And Wonder Woman was doing okay. I kind of dug with the direction they were going with it. And now we've had 2 issues of Dreams. And I'm like, what is with this man in dream sequences?
Well, not only that, so my problem with it is that it took way too long to get to the point. Then when she's finally, when she has that awesome fight in the middle of DC against all her villains, then all of a sudden it's just hard cuts. And then she's at the mall with Superman. And I'm like, wait, where did this come from?
Well, the Mall of Superman issue is they had an issue with the artist. So they kind of did a filler issue, which I don't think should have gone in there. My biggest issue with it is we went from the fight with all the villains to the mall issue, and now she's just captured by the King of America, I think is what his name is. Like he's
Sovereign,
Yeah, she's just caught. I'm like, I feel like we missed something here.
I'm like, how did that happen?
Dreams, what?
And the other thing about it is that my other issue with that run is that he's kind of overemphasizing Steve Trevor in a Wonder Woman book.
Yeah.
So
there's that whole issue of like Dream Steve Trevor. And I'm just like, what's the point of that?
Yeah, I'm like, it's to your point. Tom King must love dreams because like Batman had that. And
I was talking to writers about it because I was like, hey, I want you to catch us up with Wonder Woman. We're going to put up the next chapter. And they're like, what do you want us to do with the dream sequences? I'm like, figure out the point of them and just say that. We don't need to do the dream sequence.
You could just cut out all of it. And that's my problem with a lot of Tom King writing is that he puts too much in there when it's like he starts with, okay, so we have a great plot. The Amazons are being hunted in America. That's actually a really cool plot. And I agree with you. For like a couple of, for like the issues, it was great. Until they did a flashback where Wonder Woman punched her mom in the face. That kind of was like, okay. But the problem is like, it takes too long to get to the point because I'm like, I want to see her fight the Sovereign. Get there.
But then we skipped that, and the Sovereign just has her. And I'm like, okay, what happened there? Like,
my basic prediction is that at a certain point, they're going to tell him, wrap it up.
Well, I'm pretty sure, and I don't know where I heard this, so don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure most Dawn of DC books were given 12 issues to see if they could survive. That's why a lot of them seem to be kind of coming to the close, because we're also coming to the end of Dawn of DC.
Yeah.
So, and they're all about 12 issues in. Like, even Superman technically ended at issue 12. And it moved in. Yeah, it's still got 13 and 14, but it's all about House of Brainiac.
I love House of Brainiac.
Yeah,
so far,
and then we're
so good.
Power. So Superman's technically done right now, and they could just close it here. You know, the Graft and whatever the other guy's name storyline's over for now.
Yeah. Now, do you think, assuming they like close it, let's say, do you think they'll put another guy on Wonder Woman, or do you think they'll just tell him, okay, tell a different story now?
I don't know what they're gonna do with Tom King because he's really good with maxis. Like he gets to 12 issues, he can tell a great story.
Oh yeah,
like his Vision story was great. I've been told to read Human Target. It's apparently amazing. But whenever he does the long run, I feel like he gets a little long-winded, and that was the only issue I had with Batman. I felt Batman Rebirth was great, but I felt it was 50 issues of great, like or 60 issues. It wasn't 90 issues of great. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, I always I'm kind of turned off by the fact that he's like, Bruce Wayne is suicidal and his suicide is Batman.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait,
I liked that idea though. I did find the whole thing about bringing his dad back from Flashpoint a bit weird. Like, and now your dad's here and he's gonna like wreck your life to prove you shouldn't be Batman. It's like, what? But his dad is Batman. I don't
Yeah, I'm like, you're at the pot calling the kettle black, dude.
Yeah, I mean, like, what are you doing? Like, the Bane idea at least worked, but Flashpoint Batman, why?
But I will say the other group of books that I have been eating great on is Green Lantern, because I'm a huge GL fan, particularly with like Jeff Johns, and the Jeremy Adams run is freaking fantastic. So
I still can't believe they ended the Grant. They stopped all the good stuff, made Grant Morrison do his thing for like 2-3 years.
Know.
It was like you halted everything Green Lantern was doing, and then they brought it back, but they didn't want to, so they kept losing the rings and the core. I'm like, stop, just bring back Green Lantern. What the fudge are you doing? You know,
the funny part is that I skipped all of Grant Morrison's Green Lantern. So what's kind of funny about it is that the way Jeremy Adams kind of writes this, and I wonder if it was intentional, it reads like it's a continuation of the Jeff Johns run.
Yeah, like there's a couple things that happen in the middle, and that's about it. Because everyone's ignoring the Grant Morrison thing. I read that one. I think it was issue 3 that he fought God.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I think I'm good. I think I'm all set.
I was like, wait a second here.
And then I check back in like a year later, and like, now he's a Dark Star, and I'm like, I don't even know what those are.
Me neither. I'm like, who?
Yeah, that's too deep a cut. Too deep a cut.
Yeah, but I will say the other Rebirth book that I read and I really enjoyed is the one with Jessica and Simon. No. That was really good. I wish they would do more with those two, though.
Yeah, I thought it was a great book, and I love the way it ended up with that Phantom Lantern, who apparently doesn't exist anymore because no one's mentioned these. Like, they have all these issues with rings, and no one's been like, hey, by the way, there's this ring that has all the powers.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I wonder if they're going to reveal that in the Adams run, because isn't it like the United Planet lanterns can like change lantern cores?
Yeah, that's the running theory, I think, that it's actually linked somehow to the Phantom Ring and that it's back. And he's doing a lot of deep cuts and he's pulling everything together, which I'm really enjoying. Like, I can't believe when he brought Razor into proper continuity.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second here. I had just watched the show for the first time, which was awesome. But I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, Razor was already also in Young Justice, so I was like, they've been kind of trying to get him in. But yeah, you're right. Comic continuity, he's finally in there. So I was like, yes.
Well, they brought him in Infinite Frontier. It was, but it's weird because they're bringing him in, but I think we're ignoring the fact that Jessica became a Yellow Lantern during that series.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, what?
How did she become a Green Lantern ring again?
Well, the other funny thing, speaking of Infinite Frontier, is I love how much stuff happened in there that everyone ignores.
Oh yeah, I mean the whole idea of Infinite Frontier was just like a
5G.
Hail Mary to we got to bridge 2 years. We had 5G and no one wants this.
I know. Oh, the backlash to 5G when it got unleashed, I have never seen like the internet united against DC like it was.
The weird part about the backlash to 5G is that DC's always been about like passing the mantle, the continuity. That's how we got Wally. That's how we got Nightwing.
Yeah.
And now they want to do it again, and everyone's like, no, we only want Bruce and Kal-El. That's all we want.
Well, my problem there, and my problem particularly with the way DC has done it recently, is that the one of my pet peeves of DC, besides Lois Lane, because I hate her, is when they have two characters share the same like mantle. We have like two Supermen, Green Lantern. It makes sense because it's the core of people, but like I'm even iffy on two Flashes, but I kind of get it.
I like the idea of a mantle. The problem I think DC and Marvel both have is they try to do this mantle thing as like it works for everyone, and it doesn't work that way. Like Green Lantern, you're right, that can be passed on, but Superman, I don't think that one can be passed on as easily. Batman, anybody can put the cowl on technically and be the next Batman. But when it comes to like the Flash situation, like it works if there's not two of them.
Yeah, the whole reason why Wally became the Flash is because Barry was dead until Jeff Johns brought him back.
I don't know if we should have two guys running around as the Flash. It just makes things pseudo confusing. Marvel did the same thing where they were doing all those mantle passings for a while. Like Thor is somebody's name. I don't think you can really pass Thor. So once that mystery ended, that was it. Like she should have her own character. I thought Wolverine was actually a really good way to pass the mantle because it was to his kids and they put on the same outfit and that was fine.
That kind of works, yeah.
Yeah, but mantles are weird and like people don't normally want mantles to be passed on. It's just make a new superhero.
Well, the problem with that is that I could go down the street right now and say, who's Superman? And I guarantee you 100% of the people can say Clark Kent. Who's Batman? Bruce Wayne, not Jace Fox.
Well, I think everyone wants what's happening with Miles finally. So it took Miles like 10, 15 years, but he's really being pushed to the younger generation. So what I've seen happen in response to when I do Miles versus Peter, it's literally getting to a point where if you go to a kid and say Spider-Man, they see Miles. They don't see Peter anymore. Peter's kind of becoming our thing, the older crowd. So I think everyone's trying to make that work, but they're trying to skip to it, like John becoming Superman. And then, it didn't work, so I guess we'll get rid of it. Like, no, Miles existed for like 10 years in his own book before moving into becoming Spider-Man officially, you know?
Yeah. And even with the John thing, the problem with John is that they botched it because they had so many great opportunities. Like when he goes into Injustice. Yeah. That was cool. It ends with a hug.
They've done the problem with John is they don't know what the hell they want to do with him. Bendis screwed up. John was great as the Super Sons. That's fine. Like Damian and John going off doing this whole thing. That was great.
And we know Tevye is happy about that.
Oh yeah, Tevye hates it. But like Bendis had this idea that he wanted to age up John for one story arc. And it's like, okay, well, that story arc is great. Now we got to fix the problem. And it's like, no, we're going to move forward with John as a Superman. Like, so we're just going to skip ahead in character development. Like, that's not how that works.
I always say, I do say though, if the Super Sons movie had been more successful than it was, I think they would have de-aged John. They would have found some way to undo
I was waiting for it. Or they would have, because of the fact that they had him come out as bisexual, I don't think they would have fully de-aged him. But I do think we would have had a situation where there would have been two practically. Like maybe John would have left to a different world and then like Superboy would have come back or something weird would have happened. I don't think they would have just straight de-aged him. I feel like when they decided to, okay, well, we're gonna change his sexuality now. I feel like that point, like, okay, now you've locked him in. We can't just reverse that. Like
now, okay, so I got a question for you, and this was kind of a thing I asked all my guests, and it's a big debate on the channel. All right, so Superman and Wonder Woman or Batman and Wonder Woman?
I mean, I grew up with the classic Justice League stuff, so I want the Batman Wonder Woman. I liked that teasing. God.
No, not you too.
It comes from where you're from. Like, I actually like the idea of a Superman and Wonder Woman. I don't mind Lois, but I feel like Lois, they try too hard to make her important. She's really just one.
Thank you. Yeah. My problem is that I was reading World Saga, and the first arc of it, it's like she's like, it's the part where where like there's two Mongol guys are in the Fortress of Solitude. She has a gun, and Lois is in danger. Legit, I'm not exaggerating. I said, so he's gonna save her. That's my point with Lois, because it's the universal law. He's always going to save her. So I'm like, there's no stakes at this point. When Bendis had Superman like reveal his identity, they could have at least had the Daily Planet be threatened by terrorists for like Superman like revenge, but they didn't do anything with that.
Yeah. It's an issue I have with marriages and comics in general. Unless the significant other also has powers, your storylines are very limited, or you have to force the situation. Like we just had it happen over with Spider-Man on Marvel, where Mary Jane did that whole thing. She separated, so now she has powers. Like, of course she does. Why? But why do that? We don't need to do that. Like, the issue that you notice with a lot of the writers is that they always boil the marriage down to damsel in distress, and then everyone is like, oh, we can't just do that with Lois. Like, well, what do you want Lois to do? She's a reporter. If she does anything too much beyond like standard reporting, she's gonna get captured and she's going to get rescued by Superman. Otherwise, we get the Spider-Man game situation where Mary Jane has a gun that is so strong. Why does Spider-Man exist?
Yeah, or like the part where Tomasi lost me is when he had Lois show up in the Hellbat armor to fight Eradicator to save John. I was like, wait a second.
Okay, no, that's cool. That's cool.
It doesn't make sense though. I'm like, how does that work?
I mean, the Hellbat armor is powered by your own like blood or life force or something. So she's
something like that. But I'm like, how does Batman just leaves it around open for anyone to use?
That I believe he does. Have you seen how many of his toys get taken by the Bat family, by friends, by everyone?
Okay, that's a good point.
I have a real strong feeling Batman's like, I built all this cool shit. Here's the keys.
Yeah, I want to share it with everyone. Right. But the other thing the other problem that really I kind of have is that particularly with Batman, for some reason their one story is take away his money.
Well, it's the same issue that we have with Iron Man.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing with
His
Iron Man.
money. Oh
I'm
no,
like, what?
Iron Man lost most of his money, but he has enough to really live well.
He's
And
still
an
kind
Iron
of
Man
rich.
farmer. Yeah, that's what they do with Batman. Like, oh, he lost the mansion and the company, but he's still in the millions, so he's got a brownstone. And
Well, nowadays, Iron Man is married to Emma Frost and is associated with the X-Men for some reason. It's a good book. I actually like that a lot.
I don't know why they chose to do that, but that story was fantastic.
It's so good, isn't it?
It was like, you know what? I didn't think this would work, but this is so good.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, you know, it's kind of funny. I could see them continuing past this like arc of the comics.
Do you
Not
think they're
that
going to? We have 2 issues where they're supposed to resolve that, and then this whole Jerry Dugan run is done.
It
So do you
depends.
think they're going to keep the marriage or not?
It depends on if it was big. I'm just glad we're finally getting off the orgy island. Which, by the way, I love. Did you see how Brevoort came out and said, "No, Jean, Wolverine, Scott, we're not having sex"?
They definitely were. They definitely were. That was definitely very heavily implied that everyone was.
But I'm like, wait a second here. I'm like, why? Where did this come from?
They're trying to clean it up, is what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
it all
because
came from one issue where it was heavily implied they were doing something, and they were all sitting around in swim trunks on the beach. And it was like, and while they were doing it, they specifically had a panel for Jean, Cyclops, and Wolverine. And you're like, oh.
Speaking of wasted opportunities, so when I read House of X, Powers of 10, I was hyped because I'm like, okay, you're doing something with the X-Men that's actually really cool. So I can't wait to see what else Hickman's gonna do. Oh,
I mean, I didn't mind. I liked that Crack Cohen era.
Mm-hmm.
But I stand by because they just wrapped up Fall of X. We're trying to do it. They made it such a shit show to follow.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you had to read everything, and I hate the argument of no, you can only read whatever you want. Like no, try doing that, then you're lost. Like
it's like Marvel, I think, has this problem more than DC because I remember when like King in Black was coming out, and practically every book had a tie-in for King in Black, and I'm like, wait a second here.
You're on Blood Hunt right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, wait a second, how does like, let's say Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur linked to Venom?
Right. It doesn't work that way, but it does.
It kind of does. They said no once.
The Ghost Rider tie-in? The Ghost Rider tie-in was the best with King of Black. So
what was that one?
Ghost Rider ended early. It ended like on a huge cliffhanger. And so they gave him a Ghost Rider tie-in, and the first 2 pages is Ghost Rider fighting the symbiotes, and then one of the characters from the other series shows up and is like, forget that. We got to go finish what we did. And he used the issue to wrap up his
That is
Ghost
so
Rider
cool. That actually works.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he wrapped it up. And I was like, oh, all right, cool. We have an ending.
Well, speaking of Venom, do you think in that 3rd movie we're going to get Null as a conclusion?
No. If we do, it's not going to be Null. It'll be just like, oh, Null's the leader of the symbiotes, and that is the extent of our lore.
Yeah. My biggest, like, why did you do that is when they killed Carnage in the 2nd movie. I'm like, wait a second. Why are you doing this?
There's so much history and lore with Carnage. We're just gonna kill him off. It's fine.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Luckily, with Carnage, in theory, they could bring it back. I mean, right now, Carnage and Cletus aren't even the same person.
Well, and they did bring him back in the comics, like when Sentry tore him in half and left him in space, and then Null brought him back. And I'm like, wait, how does this work? And Kingdom of Nerds for $20 super chat says, "Congrats on 1K subs, well deserved, buddy. Thank you." And
congratulations, you just cross it.
Yeah, exactly. It was a long grind, for my friend. Long grind.
Oh, I know. I mean, it's easy for me now, but I remember the beginning of doing it. You know?
Yeah, it was for the longest time. I was stuck on 32 subs, but then once I started like actually collabing with people, that's when the momentum started rolling.
Yeah, you got to get your name out there. That's how you get the channel started up.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like I had like a bunch of shows that like really take off. Like once a week, I talk about just Superman and Wonder Woman, their whole shared worlds, and that's and it's kind of funny is that everyone's like is that the comment I get is like from the community that like goes for Superman and Wonder Woman is like, thank God someone did this. So I'm like,
no one talks about them really is what it comes down to.
Yeah,
Superman or Wonder Woman always get overshadowed by Batman and most things.
everyone at DC gets overshadowed by Batman. I'm like,
Like
wait a second.
DC could drop and I wouldn't like this because I like
No.
DC, but they could drop everyone and just have Batman books and it would probably still be fine. Like
What they'll do, I could just see it. This is what DC will do. You ready? They will turn everyone into a bat thing. Like Superman will become Super Batman.
I mean, it's called death metal.
Well, yeah, they'll do that, but everyone's the good people, and then that'll be their next reboot.
Right.
So they can put bat in front of everything. Yeah. So Tevia says, question: do you think Ultimate DC will happen?
I'm not going to talk on that.
Oh, okay. I see. I will say it's a terrific opportunity for DC because I've long said, because here was the problem with the new 52. Yeah, it saved the company, but it kind of like threw away a lot of stuff. I think if they had put it as like DC's like Ultimate Universe from the very beginning, I don't think it would have gotten so much hate.
Oh, the new 52? That I do agree with because I've said it a while ago when Marvel did all different Marvel. Like, I like to do 52 because it carried on the stories I was reading.
Me too.
And it gave it new stories.
Mm-hmm.
But I could understand everyone's hatred for what happened with New 52, like Nightwing getting stopped where it was, things like that. The problem when you do an Ultimate Universe, you have to do it like Marvel's doing it now, where it's lined up alongside the main universe so that if people don't want to jump on board at that, they still have the classic.
Yeah.
The analogy I use is like, imagine your favorite restaurant swapped out every menu item.
Mm-hmm.
You just probably won't go back. But if they swapped out half the items and the other half is still what you knew, you'd still go back to the restaurant. You still know what you like.
Well, with Marvel, it was worse because the MCU was going crazy at that time. Then you had people going, okay, so I just saw Thor. Okay, so let me go pick up a Thor graphic novel. Who's Jane Foster?
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a second here. Here, Darky Dark says, shout out Comicstorian, your OG Black Lantern, New Green Lantern versus the original Motion and Spectrum got me reinvested in comics as an adult. That too, because I was telling a Comic Display when I had him on the show, I was like, you, him, and Comic Pop, like when I got back into comics, like essentially helped me get like caught up on stuff because I'm like, I need this stuff summarized because there's a lot of crap that could happen in 4 years.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like, I've been doing this long enough now that it's like my channel has become as confusing as comic books.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm like, okay, so I need to figure out a new way to catch people up. So we started doing this series where I just recap the last 10 years of a superhero.
Yeah,
here's the last 10 years. It's going to tell you everything and you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. And that helps for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It gets pretty convoluted with some characters like Batman, but it's cool.
But luckily with Batman, you can generally just follow main Batman.
Yeah.
And then all the other stuff, you're like, and then he must have done this in between things.
Yeah, exactly. The other like humorous thing that they were doing with Dawn of DC is those Batman Brave and the Bold books. My one problem with it,
I love a second season. They just made a big deal about it. It's going to keep going.
Yeah, my problem with the book, with those Brave and the Bold books, is that so it's Batman the Brave and the Bold. I love the stories, but there's not a lot of Batman stories in those books.
No, there isn't. Yeah, they're using it as a way to just get you to try other things. That's all.
I mean, I love the Artemis storylines and all that because I'm a big like Amazon fan. So yeah. I enjoy a lot of the stories. Don't get me wrong. It's just I'm like, when can we get Batman?
I think every one of those got one Batman related story, right? Like the current one has got Nightwing and Deadman. I think it's like the Batman related story.
I mean, Nightwing works, so I'm like, okay, that counts. That's fine. Even if you gave me a Red Hood story, but I'm like, oh, okay, that kind of works.
Well, they did Urban Legends. That was like the ending to Red Hood. It's like, I give up the guns. I'm done with everything. Yeah. And then it was like the next Red Hood story. He's like, here's the guns. I'm back to it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So what do you think of Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong? Because I really love that.
I liked it until issue 7 when it all just kind of wrapped up.
Yeah, it was all like it was really sudden. I mean, they have cool stuff. Kong gets a Green Lantern ring. So I'm like, do something with that.
That's what I like. And they were psyching up like, oh, the League of Assassins is gonna revive some stuff. Like, okay, so just for one big last fight, cool.
Yeah,
like, nothing was really a challenge for them. So,
or it's like how long it took for a Batman Pacific Rim Jaeger to show up.
Right.
I'm like, what the heck? So let me ask you this. So what is your favorite comic book story of all time?
All time? I mean,
Yeah.
the easy one I normally go with is Batman No Man's Land. But the truth is, because of my ADD, I just bounce around all over.
All
the
right.
place. I don't reread anything. So
Really?
it's hard for me to be like, this is my favorite. I reread it all the time. I don't. I just go read something new.
All right. All right. Marvel or DC?
Like
Which
right
one do you
now,
prefer?
right this second,
Yeah.
my favorite story that I'm reading,
Yeah, go ahead.
Poison Ivy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
I
actually
heard that's
really
good.
Yeah, it's really good. But because of ADD, I'm hyper fixated on reading Poison Ivy. So like, this is what I like the most right now.
Oh, there you go. So Marvel or DC? Which one do you prefer?
I got more ties with DC because of my dad, so I normally lean to that. But I read them both pretty evenly. Like I just read all of the Fall of X. All
Yeah,
of it.
that must have been a slog. That must have been a slog. Because you're right. There's like too much stuff with the X-Men that you have to keep track of, and I'm like, I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to read the comic for X-Men in '97. I'm good with that.
Yeah,
which is good, by the way.
I've got that one downloaded. I haven't read it yet.
It's really good. The show was fantastic.
Oh, the show is good. I'm only problem with the show is I felt like it was way too quick. I'm like, why are you burning up so many stories at once?
Yeah, that was my thing
Kenosha
too.
could have been a whole season. Why is this like?
I will say it was kind of humorous when the showrunner of the show came out and said, "Oh yeah, that was all inspired by Man of Steel." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." I see what you're doing there. A Fall of X is a huge slog. Yeah, exactly.
It's awesome when you get through it all. I'm like, oh, this came together really beautifully. I like how it ends, and it's a great story. But it's like, but like the biggest complaint everyone has of Fall of X right now, they're like, oh, I feel like it was rushed. I'm like, actually, I disagree with that. But the only way you wouldn't feel like it's rushed is you had to have read everything.
Yeah,
because they'll do like a 6-issue series on the side that actually made everything take time and kind of decompress. But when it got back into the main story, they were like, Magneto came back to life. I hope you read that because otherwise it's one panel.
Yeah, exactly. Tevia asks, speaking of Marvel and DC, that reminds me, do you think we'll get another crossover?
No, I don't think so.
They are reprinting those omnibus.
Yeah, but that was like in honor of someone who passed. I can't remember who off the top of my head now, but that was a part of that deal.
Was it because I remember they reprinted JLA Avengers back in the day?
Yeah, that's the one that was done for that one.
And then actually they're just again reprinting at the end of the year all of their crossovers in 2 omnibus.
I still don't think it's going to lead to anything else right now. I mean, we got Disney versus Warner Brothers. Like, do you really think they're going to budge and want to work together? Particularly
WB, because I do not trust WB.
That's
Even with the James Gunn stuff, I'm like, I do not trust them.
I mean, Disney is so hard to work with that Kingdom Hearts 3 had to have 0 Final Fantasy characters just so they can get it approved finally to move forward.
Oh, wow.
Like
that sounds like Disney. That sounds like Disney. But so what do you
George Perez, that was the person who passed.
Yeah. So what do you think of all the stuff that like James Gunn announced in terms of movies? Because it sounds cool on paper, at least in my opinion. It's just my problem is that he's focusing too much on the obscure characters, getting their own stuff first before the movies have their legs.
I'm sorry, what was that?
What do you think of all the stuff that like James Gunn has like announced in terms of like the movies coming out? Because my problem with a lot of what James Gunn is doing is that he's focusing too much on like the obscure characters, like you're giving the Authority a movie, Swamp Thing series and stuff before DC actually gets his legs and gets established with the universe, because that's how we got a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, because everyone was like, if it has the Marvel Studios logo, it's going to be a good movie.
Right. I think it's going to be fine because it's not like we haven't had a Batman or Superman movie recently. Your general movie going public doesn't even know about the whole Snyder Bros and all of that stuff. They don't know any of that stuff. So I think it's going to be fine because they'll come out with his Superman, which will get everyone excited for DC again. And people still think about these characters. They still think about the logos and stuff.
My one problem is that why are we getting a Wonder Woman series, but no Diana?
I mean, you can do the island because and it still leaves the movies open to have a Wonder Woman. I think he's avoiding jumping directly into like another Wonder Woman, another Batman. Like he's leaving Batman alone for the most part at the start of this and just doing Superman. Superman's the start of the universe, you know?
But the other thing that's kind of hilarious about that is that he's like, okay, so I'm citing as inspiration Paradise Lost and Paradise Found. You realize those Diana plays a pretty big role in those stories.
Yeah, but you could also remove her at the same time and just kind of build out the island. So
that's true. DC kind of does that anyway in the comics. So
yeah, I mean, Wonder Woman, the first movie did amazing. The second movie tanked. So
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just trying to like, okay, let's just build out this world a little bit. Then we'll come back to Diana.
That's true. That's true. And now
He's got a really weird situation right now. I mean, the general movie going public doesn't know about everything that happened with Zack Snyder and all that other crap. They just know that DC made some terrible movies, and that was the end of that.
Yeah.
Like, so he needs to get back the DC name in movies. He needs to rebuild an entire universe. He has to please the people who are tracking everything that happened and please general going public and not confuse people with like, well, where's Gal Gadot? Where's Ben Affleck? What's going on? You know?
But then he comes out and says, oh yeah, some parts of season 1 of Peacemaker are canon and parts are not. And I'm like, you really expect the general public to track this?
No, I don't think he is. I think what he's just going to do with that one is they're going to just slide over to another universe and he'll just keep up where he left off. And that's pretty much it.
I can kind of see that. But yeah, because that was my concern, because I'm like, if you're canonizing Peacemaker, the Justice League that Zack Snyder cast kind of show up at the end of season 1.
Well, and that's what I think he's talking about. Like things like that, that's just not going to happen anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I think generally season 1's going to be canon. He's just basically like, yeah, you know, that cameo is not a thing. You know,
yeah.
You know, the references to Superman, not a thing. You know?
Yeah. Pika says the Flash movie had one job, because they kind of marketed that as the reboot, but it didn't reboot.
That was the weirdest thing ever. I was like, what are you
I'm like,
doing?
wait, you're even adapting Flashpoint. You know what that did, right?
Yeah.
Like,
You could just end the series right here. Like, this is just the end of the movie, of the whole franchise.
That's what they should have done. That should have been the end movie. They should have moved Aquaman back a little bit and given more time to Flash and said, that's the last movie.
Yeah.
And just ended it. Because then, because when I was watching Aquaman, I'm like, does this take place pre or post the Flash thing? Or does this take place in the universe that Barry goes to? Because Momoa also plays Aquaman there. It's
my assumption is the Barry thing was afterwards. It was just when he went to the other universe. That's what they broke everything. We just left it at that. So
okay. I kind of see that. It's kind of sad because when you because like in hindsight, the funny part about it is that WB had a fantastic opportunity, in my opinion, when the Snyder Cut was released, because you had so many people going, "Where was this in 2017?"
Yeah.
I feel like if they could have gone a little bit more in that direction, saying, "Okay, so yeah, we'll just." By the way, did you notice that the Flash movie canonized the Snyder Cut and basically threw the Whedon Cut in the trash?
Oh, but I mean, even WB was like, we're going to ignore the Whedon cut. But Whedon also got all that flack and everything. So
yeah, exactly. So it wasn't really with that. But I'm just like, if you had just capitalized on that instead of saying, "Nah, we're not going in that direction."
Right.
It's a waste. But the other thing I kind of wanted to ask you is that, what do you think is the largest obstacle facing comics right now? Because honestly, with me, I think it's just event burnout.
I think it's comics not adapting. Everyone likes to go around and be like, manga's killing comics, or, you know, comics are dying because of the new writer. The issue I see with comic books right now is that comics aren't dying, but they're also not growing. We've pretty much had the same numbers, give or take, like little fluxes here and there, for 2 decades now. The issue is that the market is moving into bookstores, and the market is moving onto things like Instagram and TikTok and all these things. And comics are still trying to cater to the local comic book store. And I feel like we just need to start adapting to the times and how you can consume your comics and a way to get it into people's faces. Event burnout, I do think, is kind of a thing. But what was the last significant giant crossover event you can think of that Marvel or DC did? Because everyone likes to go to that as like, oh, it's event burnout. But was like the last big that we all got into at crossover was King in Black.
Yeah.
DC hasn't done a giant, massive crossover. They did Night Terrors, but that was like a 1-month thing. Like I don't really consider that to be an event burnout, because event burnout comes from 6 months of this event is happening. You know, like
or it's like what I kind of means essentially one event after the last, after the last, after the last.
And it kind of is, but at the same time, like with Dawn of DC, we've got 12 issues of all these books just telling a story.
Yeah.
Like,
by the way, I thoroughly dug Dawn of DC as a thing. I think they kind of shot themselves on the foot with all of a sudden, okay, everything stops. Night Terrors.
Yeah, that was a terrible idea. I don't know why. Like, you could have done Night Terrors and just not stopped every books and writing a story. Like, my favorite was the Green Lantern one. He gets on the plane and he's like, I fell asleep.
He falls asleep on the plane. All this happens there. I'm like,
I'm on the plane. Oh, I fell asleep. Okay, no, I'm awake now.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest issue with the comic market right now is that it's just not growing. And it doesn't seem like Marvel and DC care. Like, they don't use anything as promotional arms. They use channels like mine to promote their books, and they just constantly like market to their like echo chamber. So you'll see ads in the local comic book store or in comic books, but I never see like an Instagram ad or a TikTok ad or like even a website ad, like showing them trying to break into another market or something like that.
I mean, at the very least, I have noticed that they have started putting like, here are the comic books that inspired this movie at the end of all the trailers.
Yeah, DC started doing that at least.
Yeah, I still
Marvel did Judgment Day, your chat says. That's
yeah.
right. Yeah, but Judgment Day wasn't a big, like, wasn't it just, I thought it was contained to the X-Men, Avengers, and Humans. Or Eternals.
Eternals, yeah. And the other thing, what I've always said, what they should do, which would be smart, is before the post-credit scene of any of these movies, put like a brief like graphic that says, here are the graphic novels that inspired this. Go to your local comic book store or bookstore and pick these up. And then the post-credit scene plays.
Yeah, because they always wait till the end of the credits, don't they? That's when they normally show up. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
yeah, because I'm like, everyone's gone by this point. So there you go. Well, and also Wombat made a good point. You also have the Fall of X.
See,
you have Blood
Fall
Hunt.
of X is weird because technically it's not promoted as an event. It's promoted as an initiative. And Fall of X has actually happened for over a year now.
Yeah. Well, they had Dawn of X. They had...
That's what I mean. It's technically promoted as being like, here's just what's happening in the world of X-Men right now. Now here's all the books.
I will say the thing that I think Marvel did great with those blank of X things is that they had trades that collected all the number ones of like Dawn of X for like X-Force, Wolverine, and all that stuff. And then you could just pick up those and keep going. They did a great job with that.
Yeah, no, I really did. They did. I used to collect them. I'm missing a few of them, but they stopped doing it midway through, which was like, I had a cool collection going. What are you doing?
They look great on a shelf. What are you doing? But I've seen some on the video ads while watching related videos, like when Peach Momoko series was announced. And Tevi says Fall of X. Lord Thaw says, I have them all, ... sadly. I will say,
I didn't see that Peach Momoko X-Men series getting promoted. I'll look that up.
I will say, so you know what I recently read that I've actually really dug is this Ultimate Universe by Hickman.
Yeah.
Because this is actually a really, I think with the whole, with the way they're doing the Ultimate Universe, you know, it's kind of funny. I when Ultimate Spider-Man came out and like exploded like it did, I was like, man, that Spider-Man editor's got to be sweating in his pants right now because it's like, this is Peter the way the fans kind of wanted him to be, and it's really popular.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the Ultimate Universe moving forward because they're still slowly pulling it out. Like now Ultimates 1 is starting, so we got 4 books a month now.
Watch at a certain point, they're like, okay, so now I give you our next event, Ultimatum. I'm like, oh no,
we're just gonna wipe them all out.
Yeah. Is Wasp gonna be eaten by Blob again?
I hope so.
I hope so. Yeah, that was like, see, here's the thing. Whenever these companies have a good idea, like Dawn of X, like the Ultimate Universe, I feel like there's a little part of them that's like, okay, now let's destroy it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the heck?
Well, the story has to come to a conclusion eventually.
Yeah, but conclusion and we're going to nuke it all from orbit are two very different things, dude. Two very different things.
Nuking from orbit is a conclusion.
I guess it is. It is kind of a conclusion. But so now the other thing that like I felt that maybe the comic book industry could benefit on, particularly Marvel and DC, is like decreasing the amount of books they put out, because it's like I feel like what they should be doing right now, because of how like contracted the industry is, they should be like focusing on like the characters that everyone knows, like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern. Obviously that it can have all the like detective comics, action comics, and kind of go off of that and then slowly build up, instead of like saying, okay, Alan Scott, Green Lantern, Punchline, this D-list character.
It's weird because on one hand, I like all these ancillaries because it's how we get things like Poison Ivy that gets extended.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I kind of agree because it's very like imposing for a fan to go to a store and be like, oh, I just want to know what came out this month. Oh, that whole wall of like 50
that
books.
Whole wall.
That's the wall.
It's like when New 52 first came out and it was like 80 number ones.
Well, it's 52. It was the new 52. Yeah. It was 52 number one.
It was kind of funny. Not all of them came out because they canceled half of them.
Yeah.
So like you couldn't even get that right. Marvel did a lot of spin-offs with X-Men, and Ultimate Invasion was really cool. And I have Ultimate Black Panther, Ultimate X-Men, along with the variants, and variant comics is popular too. Yeah, I suppose so. Well, the other thing is like, I think that another problem is that they go a little too overboard on the variant covers as well. I think a little.
Oh, that's for the collectors. I think that's fine. I think because your general comic book buyer doesn't give a shit.
Okay,
it's for the collectors. It's basically just hyping up a collector market inside of a niche. Mm-hmm. So
I see.
I mean, it's no different than getting like, oh, this one's a different color. Well, I got the different cover. You know.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
A shiny Pokemon kind of a situation. The collectors are always going to freak out for that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now, okay, so going back to Wonder Woman, this is a question I wanted to ask you, and I'll probably ask Rob the next time I have him on the show, is how do we fix Wonder Woman in terms of like how do we like elevate her? Because I feel like, yeah, she's like the third member of the Trinity, and she is like arguably the most iconic female superhero, but she kind of doesn't feel like it if you look at where her comics sit.
Right. Superman's comics don't sit as high as you would expect them to sit. Batman does. That's it. Like,
yeah.
But Wonder Woman is weird because I think part of the problem is she's almost got a Hawkman situation where it's just such a convoluted amount of reboots they've attempted with her. Mm-hmm. Like, I really liked the God of War New 52 idea.
Yeah, that was great.
They just straight up reinvented her and just gave a whole new concept. And then Greg Rucka came back in Rebirth and was like, no, we're going to go back to the original stuff and ignore all of 152. And it's like,
on that,
I guess, but
you know what's kind of weird about that Greg Rucka run is that when I read her say, I've never been home, and I'm like, wait a second. Superman and Deathstroke have been to that island.
Yeah.
They never been there. I'm like, wait a second here. I'm like, what
doesn't work that way. It, like they keep trying to reinvent Wonder Woman. And I think the problem with Wonder Woman, this is just my opinion on it, but you need to be able to relate with the character to make it a Batman level character. Batman's relatable because we all want to be a guy dressed up in a suit fighting crime with a ton of money.
Yeah.
You know, but Peter Parker would be more of a relatable character. Part of the problem that Superman has that makes him a bit of a struggle for people to relate to is he's just super powerful. Mm-hmm. Like, that's why Lois exists. It grounds him and makes him have a human side. But Wonder Woman's whole thing is that she is Diana and Wonder Woman. There is no human side to Diana. Mm-hmm. She's from an island of only women, and she's super strong. Sometimes she can fly, sometimes she can't. Depends on what's going on.
Yeah. It depends on the writer.
Yeah, so sometimes she has an invisible jet. I mean,
living on Superman, it's kind of funny because going back to that Superman Wonder Woman book, they actually addressed this, and we're like, Batman's like, you were raised by humans. It's like it's essentially. I took that as DC saying he doesn't need Lois to be grounded as humans. He was raised human.
Right. But that's what I mean. Like, they're always trying to get you. Your character has to be relatable to its audience member. They have to be able to see themselves in that person's eyes. And I think that's the issue with Wonder Woman. A lot of people don't see yourself as a god of war or the daughter of Zeus, or or the clay. They got this cool idea, but can you think of any truly iconic Wonder Woman stories that have like hit the stratosphere, like the death of Superman or Batman No Man's Land or Batman getting his back broken? Like, we don't have those.
Well, Amazon's attack, but for wrong reasons.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And even that's still within the comic book like niche.
Well, wasn't it also a thing that like, but back in the day, they wanted like an edgy '90s idea for Wonder Woman, and Mark Millar suggested the rape of Wonder Woman.
I think so. I think that.
But
that
that's what
doesn't
you
help.
go with.
I mean, if you go far enough into Wonder Woman's past, it starts to get maybe she shouldn't be a role model for young girls.
It's like Harley Quinn. It's like all of a sudden she's the most hilarious thing I saw after this first Suicide Squad movie was everyone's like, Harley and Joker are couples goals, and then I'm like, no, they're not.
Not at all.
No.
Don't look too far back, and you can have that. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So I think that's the issue that we have with Wonder Woman, though. She's not relatable. She's the third member of the Trinity, but most people remember Wonder Woman stories as a part of Justice League Unlimited. So she didn't even get a cartoon that everyone loved and stuff like that.
And she even she even get a lot of attention in that show either.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So she's always existed, and I do think she's the most recognizable female superhero in the world. But I think she's more of an icon in that level as opposed to like super engaging stories that are super relatable that a lot of people want to get into.
That's true. And Randy brings up there is stories like League of One and Spirit of Truth, but it's not like yes, those are like big Wonder Woman stories, but they're not as like widespread known as like say the death of Superman, Nightfall.
The story has to go outside of the comic echo chamber, the comic niche. Because we can name good Wonder Woman stories. I can tell you amazing Harley Quinn stories, but I bet you part of the reason that DC's having problems getting her past cosplay is can the general public name a good Harley Quinn story?
Mad Love, maybe, or
maybe, but that also kind of goes into that could also be Joker, like.
Yeah, and see the problem with Harley Quinn is that I get what they're going for in trying to turn her, and it's like the strong independent woman thing. It's just, to me at least, I kind of saw Harley as like the personification of like Joker's ability to like manipulate people.
Yeah. I mean, the proof that no one follows Wonder Woman storylines is the first movie, because it was such a hodgepodge of every element in every other Wonder Woman. Like that, because you can look at other stories and be like, okay, no, that one was lifted from this Batman story, or this one was lifted from this Guardian story. And then you go to Wonder Woman and you're like, so this is just lifted from Wonder Woman. Like,
exactly.
Just Wonder Woman elements.
And 2 was like not taken from anything. It's like
I don't know. If it was, I have no idea.
The sad part is that Jeff Johns co-wrote that. So I'm like, that proved to me maybe he should stay in comics.
We also co-wrote the Green Lantern movie.
I don't think that's that bad as people say it is.
I don't think it's as bad, but I don't think it's good.
Well, the problem is they tried to VFX everything, like the suit and the mask. And I'm like, you could have at least had like a mask you put, an actual mask you put on his face, instead of like trying to CGI his face. And then we get into Henry Cavill territory.
Yeah.
Well, and then shoving Steve Trevor down our throats doesn't help. And that's the other thing, because when you look at Steve Trevor as a love interest for Wonder Woman, he is boring. Yes, he doesn't work with a character that fights gods. Because I'm like, what are you going to do? Are you going to shoot Ares in the face with an M4? That's not going to work.
Honestly, I don't think beyond doing some brief stuff with Superman, she should have any kind of significant other in general. I think she stands strong enough alone that she doesn't need that like anchor to the human world, which is what Steve Trevor's supposed to be.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, well, actually, here's the funny part. Technically, Wonder Woman is human. She's born on Earth, so there is that. But
but sometimes she's not human. She's a god, and sometimes she's clay, and sometimes
it gets to that point. It's like when DC after Death Metal had that whole everything is canon. So, and I said, okay, which of Wonder Woman's origins is canon? But they both can't be canon.
I do love that Death Metal was a Wonder Woman event that heavily featured Batman.
I know, exactly. And I'm like, wait a second, which character is heavily thrown in there? Oh, it's Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Which it was still cool. My problem with that is that it escalated like real quick. Because
and she was like the gold god fighting against God.
They're throwing planets at each other, and I'm like, what? Where did this come from?
We've entered anime.
Yeah, but the other thing, going back to essentially Wonder Woman, that's why I like that book that Charles Soule did, because because if you notice, like One arc was she was fighting a Superman villain. The second arc, when they tied it into when Superman was actually turning into Doomsday, she fought Superman. The third arc, Superman fought Cersei. So they were kind of going into each other's worlds a little more. And it wasn't like Wonder Woman became Superman's like sidekick.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people say when they say like, okay, if Wonder Woman's with Superman, she becomes a sidekick. And I'm like, depends on the writer, but no, it doesn't really work. If anything, right now, Wonder Woman is kind of Steve Trevor's sidekick.
She's not even that right now. She's like removed.
Yeah, I'm like,
Absolute Power is coming, and she has nothing to do with Absolute Power.
She's crossing over with Damian, and I'm like, what? What? Not even with Batman. You're with Damian.
Like the Absolute Power promo is we've got Zur-En-Arrh and we've got female Brainiac. So we got a Superman villain and a Batman villain. And it's like, all right, so who's the Wonder? Wait, it's Waller. So there's no Wonder Woman villain. We just got Waller.
Yeah, but so Tevye, I asked a good question. Speaking of that, what about Trinity, the daughter of Wonder Woman? Do you think she's going to matter in the long run? I will say, it's interesting how they kept her stories to the future.
I think they're testing it. I think that's the point of that's why I think they're just being vague. Is that she's the daughter? Is she adopted? I think what they're doing, because if you look at it right now, the backups are older Trinity, younger Trinity. They're just jumping around the timeline to tell fun stories.
Yeah, which that's fine. I like that.
And I think they're keeping it as a short story, what if kind of thing. But if she picks up in popularity, if the book really sells, then she's going to get worked into main canon.
I see the thing about the problem with that is that when you listen to his reasoning for having a Wonder Woman having a kid, it's the same reason why Superman had John. It's like Batman has the kid, Superman has the kid, Wonder Woman should have a kid. I'm like, that's your reasoning?
No, I actually don't mind that reasoning, because I do think Super Son should be a Super Trinity. I think it actually really, really works. But the problem is, if you fully make it canon, you need to explain it. And if you're going to explain it as her being the actual daughter of Wonder Woman, we could do the Magic Clay route, but everyone's going to want to know who is the father. Like,
that's what the question was when he announced that. I was like, who's the father? Oh, it's not even her kid as it stands right now.
That's what I mean. So right now she's technically the kid, but she's technically not in continuity. We're just in a weird middle ground to see if people like her.
Which is why I think, because here's the thing. Yes, some people do like her. A lot of people don't. So I'm thinking that they may
because Yara Flor failed. I think they're trying to fill the Yara Flor line.
They didn't really give Yara Flor that much of a chance, though, because her book was actually pretty good. It's just, and then they're like, okay, go away.
Yeah. Well,
that was the one character from Future State everyone loved.
They're trying to make Wonder Woman as like a brand to be as powerful as Batman or Superman. That's what they keep trying to do. It's just, they're trying weird ideas. Like, what if we reinvent her as Yara Flor? Okay, what if we give her a kid? What if we, you know what I mean? Like, that's what they're doing right now. Just like Supergirl finally got a little bit more popularity because of the Tom King run. That's why he's on Wonder Woman now. You know?
Yeah. And the other thing about it is that it's just, I kind of wish also on that we didn't have to wait, because here's the thing. So it's a plot point that started in the very beginning of the Tom King run that has not been addressed yet. This Amazon that's going around bars killing men. Where's that?
Oh, well, that's who she's hunting down. That's what started all this.
Really? Because she seems to be hanging out with Steve Trevor, going to go visit a kid's house. It doesn't seem that much of a priority, kind of.
Well, because I don't think at the end the person who instigated it is, because what they've discovered is that it wasn't what it seems, and she was trying to track down that person, but then they discovered the King of America is manipulating everything. So that kind of turned into a pivot of that, because it doesn't matter what actually happened. You got to stop the source of who's spreading all these things, because that's the exact same person that then spread the rumors that she emasculated all the men in the army and stuff like that. So you got to get rid of the problem, then we can go figure out who actually did it.
Also, it was hilarious. We're like, if you look at that actual battle scene of her versus the army, she straight up killed the U.S. Army.
Oh, yeah, there's no way she didn't.
She's throwing tanks around like that. I'm like, yeah, those guys are dead.
There's people in those tanks. What are you doing?
They even have blood splatter coming off the page. And I'm like, what? But the other issue I have with the run, and this is kind of what made me drop it, is that it seems a little too heavy-handed on the guy bashing stuff and not too much on like the Wonder Woman stuff, because with Wonder Woman, it's like I want to see her fight gods and stuff, but it seems too much. I get that with Wonder Woman, you do kind of have to address gender a little bit. It's just I feel like Tom King is going a little too in your face with it.
I actually disagree with that. I feel like he could go heavier if he wanted to. Like, I get that's the plot that he wants to go
wanted
with.
to.
Yeah, I was like, you could definitely get the vibe that he wanted to really go into that concept of like, look, Wonder Woman is just emasculating everybody. So, like, that's the issue right now. But I do feel he held back just to get that one soldier to commit suicide over the whole situation. And, like, that's kind of where we're leaving it, because now we're just have Wonder Woman fighting against the Sovereign, basically, but not. I don't really know what's going on.
She's in a prison, which even that, I'm like, you keep her in a cell made of bricks. She's Wonder Woman.
Yeah. And he's using the lasso of lies, or
that she broke, by the way, in the previous issue. So I'm like,
that's why I'm also very confused. Like, okay, like issue 7 when she broke out and like hit the Sovereign.
I thought they were gonna fight.
Yeah, like there we go. That's it. We're moving forward. And then the next issue was like, oh no, she's still in the cell and she's having dreams still. Like, wait, what?
What? It
I missed something? Are you writing
kind of
another
feels
book
like
alongside this?
It feels like they maybe published the stories in the wrong order. Like maybe the one of her in the cell was supposed to go before she broke the lasso.
That could be it. They did them out of order.
Because to your point, it doesn't follow, because I'm like, what the what?
Just like even getting caught, I feel like we're missing a key plot point. Like,
yeah, I'm like,
unless I missed an issue, the issue before her getting caught was her dealing with all of the Wonder Women and trying to prove that they shouldn't help her in the fight.
Yeah.
And then they all trick her into saying, no, we will help you in the fight. And then
they don't show up in the fight.
Right, and they don't show up in the fight. And then we take a break and go shopping with Superman. And then we come back and she's caught. And I'm like,
that, you know what was kind of funny? You notice how they've been slowly bringing back the truth, justice, and the American way for Superman?
No, I really noticed that at all. I mean,
because if you notice in Super Sons, he says truth, justice, in the American way. And then the Tom King, in that Superman issue, he goes, oh yeah, truth, justice, the American way. The American way is the third one. I could help you, Diana. So I'm like, either DC is quietly bringing that back, or they didn't, or like Tom King is straight up ignoring it. Either of those is likely.
I can see Tom King's ignoring it, only because Tom King, he's ex-CIA, he's very American focused. So
I see that. And plus, it wouldn't be the first time a writer has ignored DC's edicts. So
also, I don't think DC has anyone in charge at the moment, so I think you can get away with whatever you
want. Well, yeah, that too.
Joshua Williamson's running half of DC at the moment, so
yeah. Which, but it's like, but see, the thing is, it just goes back to like the whole. Why did it take us 8 issues to get to this point? Because this should have been like maybe 4 issues, and then like maybe like the other 4 issues are the aftermath of the fight. Like, my theory is that they're going to actually kill Steve at the end of this.
I mean, I don't know. He's a dreams figurine now. I mean,
well, I mean, the real one, and then the rest of it's going to be Wonder Woman dealing with that. Because if there's one thing we know about Tom King, is that he likes to write characters as depressed.
Oh yeah. He likes to go the depression route on everything.
Yeah, exactly. A question: what about what is Jim Lee doing over there at DC Comics? I think he's more of like, yeah, Jim Lee's in charge, so DC can say we have Jim Lee in charge, but still no one's really in charge there.
I think what's going on is they're all just waiting to see what's going to happen, and somebody has to be installed and get DC back up and running. I think at the moment WB is just so not focused on comic books that they're all just kind of doing some, okay, whatever. You know,
well, they've never been that focused on comics. That's why it's
but at least in the Jeff John era and the Scott Snyder era, like they were like, these guys are running the show.
Yeah.
And right now it's like Joshua Williamson's running the show, and so is Jim Lee, but you'll never hear them talk about it. Like
it's like even with Dan DiDio, I mean, yeah, granted the new 52 had problems, but at least it like had a direction. Even Rebirth had a direction. We're building toward Doomsday Clock, which took 10 years to come out.
Yeah. We need another Dan DiDio over there. We need someone who's loud and blasting what's going on. And
then if they have a plan, you need someone like Jim Lee to tell the fans, here's the plan.
Right.
This is the plan we're going with, because that's the other problem. I think the big two have, particularly DC, is they have a communication problem because no one knows what the plan is when they're communicating this.
Right. All we know is that Dawn of DC is happening and we're getting absolute power. And like, okay, so what happens after that?
Yeah. I'm like, they should be kind of hyping up like maybe the next publishing initiative, but it's like, I'm like this way. I love DC. They're my favorite. In fact, the reason why I prefer DC is because I've always been more of a fan of like Greek myth, and DC kind of leans into that with the Justice League.
Yeah.
But it's like, I kind of wish they would put a little more effort into it, because sometimes it feels like they're not all there.
No, I agree. I feel like we just keep losing people and no one's coming on board. But now they're finally going in something. We got Chip Zdarsky. We got Joshua Williamson. I don't know what Jim Lee's doing. He's doing something.
Doing something. I love that. Yeah.
I mean, we got people over there. We got Jeremy Adams. Like, we're starting to feel good again over at DC. Because like since 2020 until like last year, it was kind of like, what is happening? It's so hard to fight for DC right now.
So Tevia says, heck, we can also add in Bendis, because technically he was in charge of DC Comics. He was never in charge of DC Comics.
Yeah, he never had any say.
What's kind of funny is that we did a video once, me and my co-host, about what if Bendis was never brought to DC. And when you look at the second and third order effects, like Kelly Sue DeConnick does not come in and tank Aquaman. It's like we would still have that awesome Aquaman run in Rebirth. And I'm like, it's like when you look at how much of stuff was affected by that one decision, it's actually kind of funny. It's like with that. And then, so the other thing I wanted to ask is like, what would you say is like the era where DC seemed to have it all together for the most part? Would you say would you say it was New 52?
No, I'd say Rebirth, because they've come out and said they had no idea what they were doing with New 52. They had no plan.
it kind of showed, because it's like, again, with the whole 5 year, if they had told us that like it's like 10 years, I could have bought that for the most part, because it's like, yeah, 5 Robins in 10 years, that's believable. 5?
Yeah, it's a little too condensed. No, DC Rebirth felt the most cohesive that they've been in a long time. That was also like some of their biggest sales numbers, if I remember correctly.
Actually, it's kind of funny is so New 52 launched, and that was like the largest boost to DC. Then what I found out later is from comic book shop owners that when Rebirth happened, yeah, it kind of had sales and numbers because they were double shipping books, but they didn't see as big of a bump as they did in the New 52 era.
Oh,
at least from what I remember. I'd say post-crisis was the last time before Rebirth they had everything together. Post-crisis, they were maybe, and Robert, I know you love post-crisis. I respect that, my brother, but there were a lot of stuff where, like, I mean, they had an era where like Superman was making out with a 14-year-old girl. That was John Byrne. But still, I just found, it's kind of funny. That panel was going throughout Twitter, and I just recently discovered, I was like, when was this?
Right.
And I was like, what? It's like, what editor was reading this and said, yeah, that's fine. I'm like, what? Early 2000s Infinite Crisis era, pre-52 was the most put together has been in my lifetime. True. Yeah, and at least with Rebirth, again, they had a plan. It just took them very long to get to the plan, and then they threw out the plan, because it was like I wish that they had that like, for one thing, Doomsday Clock was not super delayed, because then maybe we could have seen what the actual thing was.
Yeah, we have no idea what the actual plan was because of the Doomsday Clock having to get pivoted out of that because it just was super delayed. It took 2 years instead of 1 year. I was like, what the hell even happened? What I want to know what happened.
Plus, we still kind of don't know if Doomsday Clock is canon. It's like 3 Jokers. I'm like, wait, what?
No, they referenced Doomsday Clock finally.
Okay.
It happened.
Kind of. The one thing I will say I like about Doomsday Clock is that they took the New 52 and gave it its own Earth. It's like, it's over there. It's not wiped from continuity anymore. It's just there. So I'm like, okay, at least you're giving me some respect there. Again, that's what they should have done there. But I feel like the thing about it is like even with like the three Jokers, I wish that they had like that they would be a little more forthcoming on what's canon or not, because you never know with the black label stuff. And with three Jokers, I'm like, this was referenced in canon.
Yeah. Well, the three Jokers thing is now canonized by Chip Zdarsky, so they fixed that.
Yeah, kind of. I was like, wait a second here.
I mean, they fixed it. Like, oh, this is what we meant? Problem solved.
Really? That's what you and it's still disappointing. But by the way, the other thing that I brought up is I've been watching a lot of your stuff recently, and then I do agree with you. I am very tired of Batman constantly losing Gotham.
It happens way too
because I'm like
too back to back. Like what
at one point, once can he say, "Hey Clark, can you come help me out with this for just once?"
Yeah. I just lost the city again, Clark. You need help.
I will say, at least with failsafe, Superman showed up and he goes, okay, get away from Batman. Let's go. I'm like, finally they did that.
Superman could have resolved Fear State immediately.
Yeah. Any of the Justice Leaguers could have. I'm like, wait a second here. Flash. Wonder Woman.
Why does he like, okay, Joker War, I'll call Wonder Woman. I'll call Flash in for Fear State, and then I'm going to call
everyone else. But I'm like, but again, they have to also repeat the whole Batman arc of like, like, do I trust my teammates? And can I do this alone? That they keep doing over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like with even do I love Catwoman, or do I love maybe Talia, or like
no, that he was going to marry Catwoman, but she was tricked out of marrying him.
That was the point where I started to go, okay, I like what you're doing, Tom King, and I get it wasn't entirely his fault with the whole marriage thing,
right?
But I'm like,
it really comes down to Batman's just a terrible superhero.
Yeah, he kind of is.
He kind of loses everything.
Yeah, and if he needs prep time to be prepared for anything, I'm like, yeah, he obviously, but with prep time, he can do anything.
Yeah,
but I'm like, wait, it doesn't kind of make sense. But it's like, even with like the other Tom King moment that I kind of checked out on is not even his Batman run. It's in Heroes in Crisis when Harley Quinn takes down Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and Superman goes, "She's good, Bruce, possibly even as good as you." And I'm like, since when?
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, so what she does is she hugs Wonder Woman, saying, "Oh my gosh, I've done such terrible things." She grabs the lasso, wraps Wonder Woman in it, and then like throws kryptonite at Superman, and then like beats up Batman. And I'm like, what?
We need Harley Quinn to be good. We need her to be good.
Yeah, but that was also the book where Lois Lane basically docks a large portion of the superhero community.
Yep.
And I was like, if you're trying to make me like Lois Lane, you're doing a horrible job of making me like Lois Lane.
This is not the route to go.
Yeah, I'm like, she basically revealed personal information about the Justice League. So I'm like, it's not exactly working. But Batman and Catwoman's relationship is so dead it needs to be. So let me ask you this. So we talked about like how one of your favorite parts about DC is the reboot stuff, and I agree with you on that. Do you think we are approaching another full-on Flashpoint style reboot?
I don't. Right now, I think they kind of ducked out of that with Dark Crisis, because Dark Crisis was going to be it supposedly, and then they chose not to. So I don't think we're leading to another reboot. Dawn of DC feels like a pseudo reboot, like a rebirth or a New 52, but just no one knows it even happened for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. The one part where I would have bet, the one part that kept from being like full on Dawn DC is I don't buy the the Titans being the new Justice League. I mean, it works for an arc, but I need a Justice League book. Come on, guys.
I was talking about this the other day. The Justice League situation is weird. I completely understand that the Titans are supposed to be the Justice League. This is the direction we're going, and I love that idea. But I still think there should have been a Justice League titled book. Titling it Titans, they're not as popular as the Justice League.
Yeah, they don't. You could call it JLT, Justice League Titans, or something like that, and still have that. It's just, again, to your point, they're relying too much on the brand and maybe Tom Taylor's name to bring it across. But it's like, it's the same thing of like when people think of Marvel, they think of the Avengers At least now they do.
Yeah.
But when you think of DC, you think of the Justice League characters first. So I'm like, you can't leave that out.
It feels weird at DC. Like there's a void where the Justice League book should be.
Yeah, and it's like it's just like, I'm sorry. I mean, even though I like the Titans as a concept. Again, they are no Justice League. I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, they have a place, maybe as like as a transitory group from Teen Titans to Justice League. In other words, they like graduate, they get on the Justice League. But it's like,
well, I think the big issue is the Titans are supposed to be the Justice League right now, but the Titans aren't dealing with Justice League level issues.
no,
They're still just dealing with Titans issues.
yeah,
Like,
it's like
the inner turmoil, the inner drama, Raven, Garth, all these characters,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you're not doing Justice League stuff.
no one's punching Perpetua in the face.
That's what I mean. Like, we're just
And I'm-
dealing with Titans related issues.
Now, let me ask you this. So let's say they bring back a Justice League. Who's your lineup?
Oh, I just like the classic, the original 7. That's all I
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been gone long enough now. Just bring them back.
yeah, I know. Just, I mean, that's the benefit of hindsight in terms of like there hasn't been a Justice League for a while, and
But it's
Ben
funny
is
because
tr-
the most Justice League thing we've had recently was that Godzilla crossover.
yeah, I know it had like and that was a Justice League level threat. I also love where like with Red Hood's like, okay, I'm gonna take the shot. Red Hood, don't take the shot. Oh, I took it. It did nothing. We told you that was gonna happen.
I just love that the Red Hood, like whoever wrote Red Hood in that book did not like Red Hood.
No. A lot of DC does not like Red Hood. It feels like sometimes. Robert asks, okay, so question: what obscure DC hero would you want in the Justice League? If you could have one obscure character.
I mean, I like it when they use like Supergirl or Hawk Girl, but I mean, I guess they're not really super obscure anymore. Do something really ballsy like Midnighter.
Oh, here's something ballsy. Supergirl, but Red Lantern Supergirl.
Oh, dude, that was like her best era.
That was so good.
I'm
like, they did something original.
Too. Yeah, both those, the Red Lantern whole thing was good.
Yeah, and I'm like, again, they did something new with her as opposed to making her a Superman clone. So I'm like, yeah, there you go, that works. I wonder if they could do that for the movies. Now that would be interesting.
They're going to do Woman of Tomorrow. It completely plays differently than a Superman story.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm like, will that work? Because I mean, it is a book that like portrays Supergirl as basically a drunk swearing sailor, but I mean, maybe that could work. I mean, it's a Tom King.
It's even in line with the anger era of New 52 and the.
That is true.
It's just now she's got 7 more years on her. She's just a drunk.
That's what that's what I'm talking about, because they could lead into like a Red Lantern later. Because as far as we know, the other Lantern Corps exist. I mean, I hope they do. I hope they do. Yeah, the Godzilla crossover was good. Which Woman of Tomorrow is super depressing. It's basically True Grit. It's basically the plot of True Grit.
I mean, it is. But
yeah, I think Teen Titans are being pushed for a future movie, like how they did Black Adam. Remember when like Black Adam was everywhere?
Oh yeah, they were trying to get that movie to pick up.
Yeah, and apparently the hierarchy of the DC universe did not change.
You don't believe The Rock? I mean, what's wrong with that?
I know there's no way he would embellish his own thing.
That was such a wild idea anyway, that The Rock's going to show up and make people care more about Black Adam than Superman. What?
Counterpoint, I always said, if they wanted that movie to really do well, here's what they should have done. It should have been instead of a Rock versus JSA movie, it's a Rock versus Henry Cavill Superman movie.
Oh, yeah.
That would have, people would have showed up.
Yeah.
And they even teased that at the end of the movie and then told Henry Cavill to announce he's back. And then they're like, no.
Yeah, we changed our mind.
Yeah, we changed our mind. We're WB. We change our mind all the time. Quick question. Speaking of Supergirl, any opinion on the Supergirl on My Adventures Superman show? Because for me, I think she has potential on that show. That's the anime one that
I haven't seen the new season, so I don't think she's in it.
My problem with it is I hate all the character designs. Like they bring in Damage, but like put it this way, it's a damaged version of Damage in terms of like the character design. I'm like, I get what they're going for. They're going with a very anime look to it. It's just I'm not digging it.
I actually really like it. I mean, it doesn't really feel as much like a Superman thing, but it feels like a Superman for the current era.
Maybe a Superboy thing. That would be interesting.
Well, it's kind of what he is, basically.
But did you see that? So when Crisis Part, I think it was 2 came out, they made it like the Earth 1 that we had followed since Man of Tomorrow. DC on their social media labeled him as Superboy.
No, I didn't. I did follow those movies.
They did. So they put him as Superboy, and then the Earth 2 older Superman as Superman. Ironically, that was the one that was with Wonder Woman. So I'm like, oh, really? But my problem with the animation on that, and this is kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, and then we'll wrap up. It's the idea that, with at least with the animated movies, they seem to do a lot of stuff off screen. Like
they have been really recently, which is weird because DC animation used to be like the king.
Yeah.
And then over the course of the last decade, WB's like, they don't need money.
They
can just do whatever.
Well, yeah, it's like even when they did the Death of Superman movie, which I think didn't necessarily work because it's still a new 52 era universe and you're cramming in a post-crisis story. But regardless of that, they break up Superman and Wonder Woman off screen and have a throwaway line like, we decided our relationship was not going to work out. Anyway, he's with Lois now. The other stupid thing about that is that the way he reveals his identity to Lois, he just takes off his glasses and says, I'm Superman. Right. I'm like, you're telling me you're that point in your relationship where you're on the I love you stage practically proposing and she's never seen you without your glasses on? I'm like, wait a second.
I mean, but that's like typically how he reveals himself to Lois, you know?
At least in the Reeve movie, he like fell into a fire. He heated up her coffee. He did other stuff.
Right.
That only Superman could do. He didn't just go, I'm Superman. What?
I didn't realize it, but you look just like Superman when you take off your glasses. I mean,
oh yeah, I know. Thank you. Apparently, I do have the shirt on. So there you go. But yes, or the Iraq's Black Adam versus Cowboys and other Justice League characters. JSA should have had their own movie exploring their origins. That is a good point. They did have a comic series, kind of, that like explored that.
I like what they're doing with the JSA right now, like all of Jeff Johns' initiative to have like all of the JSA related stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like it's getting to the point of like Jeff Johns is doing that here and Dawn of DC's here, and they like kind of cross, but they don't. It's just weird.
Which I'm fine with that because you can treat the JSA as like separate a little bit, but it's like I see what you're saying there. The other thing that I think is kind of odd, to Tevye said the JSA book is coming to an end. Well, I mean, if it's written by Jeff Johns, it kind of has to. He's exclusive at another company.
Oh, did he sign a deal?
Well, he's they're all exclusive at Ghost Machine.
Well, yeah, but he owns Ghost Machine.
Oh yeah, that is true.
That's like me saying I'm exclusive to Comicstorian. I can't be in other podcasts. But I want to, so I'll come on here.
Yeah. All right. Have you been checking out those Ghost Machine books? Those are really good.
No, I haven't. I got downloaded one of them finally, but I haven't. I didn't even realize they were.
Dude. I got 2 words for you. Rook Exodus. It's Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok art. It is solid.
Okay, I think that's the one I downloaded. Rook.
Yeah, it's really. It's a really good like post-apocalyptic thing, and it's really good. I think the advantage with that, and I think we're kind of seeing a second image revolution, in that you have a lot of the big name creators leaving, forming their own company, and then achieving a lot of success. What do you think?
I think we're on the cusp of that actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
But we are quickly entering into an era where too many people are doing it. We got Kyle Higgins over there with the Massive Verse. We got Scott Snyder doing whatever books he's doing now over at Comixology and Amazon. We've got things like, Jeff Johns writing his own stuff. We're getting to the point where it's like everyone's like, well, we don't need image. We don't need image. Mm-hmm. And so it's just becoming a weird situation of there's too many happening at the same time. True. I mean, there was the whole thing with James Tynion leaving off to do Tiny Onion, and I haven't heard anything about his books other than the ones he does at DC still.
Me neither. Yeah, exactly. Robert asks, all right, question. Do you think editorial Lee Sheridan's Alan Scott Green Lantern book, it feels like the delay in the issues would match up with the backlash and when the writing improved on it?
I don't even know there was backlash for it.
There was backlash because he kind of like portrayed because he like had scenes where like Alan Scott was supposedly picking up male prostitutes at the dock, and maybe he's being like sexually blackmailed to join the JSA by Herbert Hoover. So it's kind of I see where he's going with that.
Right.
It's odd. There. The question is Image Comics coming to an end, because that sounds concerning.
Wow, I mean, Image is never going to end. I mean, if IDW can hang on, if Dark Horse can hang on, Image is not going anywhere.
If IDW could, after losing all those licenses, yeah, exactly. Retroverse is becoming the new Image too. That is partial.
I mean, I'll Google, but as far as I know, Rippaverse has the one book, doesn't it?
They have like 4 or 5 now, I think.
Do they?
Yeah, because
well, here's a question: are they out?
Yeah. Yes, they are.
Okay, no, there's 3.
Okay, so there's I thought there was 4 because you have
there's 2 ISOMs. There's 2 ISOMs. Yeah.
2 ISOMs. Oh yeah, in terms of book, yeah. There was 3, and they just launched Yaira, I think, which is actually pretty good. Ghost Machine is being distributed via Image per wiki, at least. Yeah, exactly. Now, okay, so before we wrap up, let me ask you a final question. So in terms of other aspiring comic YouTubers, do you have any like advice for them? Like anyone starting off?
I mean, not really. We're in a weird situation. One thing that I learned a long time ago, which is what I built Comicstorian on, at the end of the day, people don't care about opinions as much as people think they do. They don't care about reviews as much as people think they do. The reason is simple. It's not anything in particular. It's because comic books are too much of an impulse buy. A comic book's $4. Who's going to Google a review on it? That's why reviews have never done super well. Pretty much people just want you to tell them what's happening. You know, they want, and like what I do at Comicstorian is we try to keep it, not all of it, so that way people can go buy the books and stuff like that. But the best way to grow a channel is to just tell people what's happening. The biggest ones that I've seen grow recently are basically just doing shorts where they just tell you what happened, one of the cool scenes, and here's where it is. So
yeah, I didn't notice a lot of shorts are like really exploring. Even on my side, and I talked about why I dropped Tom King's Wonder Woman. So there you go.
I said people just want to know what's happening. They don't really care about the reviews or like there is a subsection. That's why podcasts do well. People do want to know the overall discussion, but.
Thanks for coming on. It was a pleasure hanging out with you. Where can obviously I probably don't have to ask this, but screw it. Where can we find you?
Just Google Comicstorian. I got everything. That's all me.
Yeah, because I was about to ask, because you have like 5 channels. So
that's because of the YouTube algorithm bullshit. And I tried a couple ideas and it's working. So it's like, all right, now we just have 3 Comicstorian channels, a Mangastorian channel, and then a rant channel.
Last comment, Richard says, be excitingly passionate about stories you cover. Benny's best content is the thing he does out of love for the story, not just because of the trending titles. Yeah, the thing that I notice, what I always tell people is at least be passionate about what you're covering, because if you're passionate, you'll go through like those long days where it's like with me when I'm stuck at 32 subscribers and it feels like no one's watching. But when you actually enjoy it, you're like, okay, I'm just doing this not necessarily because of the views, but just because I enjoy doing it.
Yeah. I've been like that with Comicstorian for a while now. I mean, I'm going on 15 years now. So there was a point where I just crossed over and like, I don't care. I'm just going to do what I think is fun. And then I still had to abide by the algorithm, but that's why we launched all the extra channels, so I can just do what I want to do.
That works. And I can speak for at least me when I say I watch all of it. So there you go.
Well, thank you.
No problem. So stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lame. She belongs with General Zod. So it's a Max of Bat for life. See you later.